Voters are at the polls once again and voting in some of those races here in Metro Atlanta. The biggest one is deciding who's going to be the next mayor of Atlanta. A lot of eyes are on this one right now, folks. 11 Alive political analyst Andrea Gillespie is joining me right now. So when you think about both candidates running for mayor, what are voters considering right now between the two, Moore and Dickens?
Well, this isn't the Moore-Reed matchup that I think people were anticipating. So there's a lot more similarity between Andre Dickens and Felicia Moore than there would have been between Kasim Reed and either of those two candidates. So there may be voters who had a hard time making their decisions. They may have been influenced somewhat by the endorsements. I suspect that we might see some slight differences in terms of perceptions about crime and affordable housing, the former benefiting Felicia Moore, the latter benefiting Andre Dickens. But I think ultimately this comes down to turnout. So whichever of these candidates has the best turnout operation is probably in a good position to win.
Okay, so this is the perfect time for us to transition into turnout, because that has been a major factor this turnout. Let me throw out some numbers here for you right now. During this short early voting period right now, folks, around 36,000 people in Fulton County voted in person and nearly 3,000 in DeKalb County. That's during this particular month, right, this short period. What do you think is going to be a higher or lower voter turnout here?
Well, I expect that turnout's going to be lower tonight than it was on November 2nd. That's typically the case in a runoff election. So we should expect lower turnout, which means that get out the vote is all the more important. But I think that this is also an opportunity for us to talk about, we're a city of about 500,000 people. When fewer than 100,000 people show up to vote for the first election, and we expect that fewer than that are going to show up for the runoff election, we need to take more of an effort to take ownership of our city leadership, because more people should be participating in local elections.
Do you think voters are just weary? I mean, after 2020, we went through that election, you know, and now we have this. We've had a couple of more elections since then. Do you think they're just weary of these elections over the past couple of years?
I don't doubt that weariness is a factor. However, this is actually pretty typical. We expect the highest turnout in presidential election years, and then we would expect an off-year local election to have precipitously less turnout than one would in a presidential election. That means that it's really important for candidates, for political parties, for those nonpartisan groups that are really interested in voter turnout to make sure that they are constantly educating voters about the fact that there are elections every year, multiple times a year, and that we're making sure that we're trying to get as many people to turn out to vote as possible. And it's important for citizens to realize that the election of a mayor is as consequential as the election of a president.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why you see a lot of candidates out there stumping for votes, trying to get their base energized to come out and vote. All right, so check this out. Our Survey USA poll showed Moore had a slight advantage over Dickens with a 5% margin of error at the time. So how close will this race be when you look at the numbers right now?
Well, that is a statistical tie given the margin of error. So I think that this race is either candidates, and it really is going to come out to sort of which group of constituents and supporters wants to show up to vote. So whichever group is the most enthused is likely going to be the one who is going to win.
Okay, thanks a lot, Andrea Gillespie.